Latin American analyst. Javier, good to have you on the show. These events are not uncommon in Brazil. I mean, over the past year, as we've stated, hundreds of Brazilians have died in flooding and landslides brought on by these torrential downpours. What do you think is behind, or the major aspect in terms of the extent of the damage? I mean, do you feel that it's topography, poor construction?
Well, there are many issues why this is happening. First of all, there's been a radical cut in the expenditure, the government expenditure in environmental protection, which includes civil defenses for this kind of phenomenon. This is not new, of course. Every year there's something called La Niña, which is rains caused by sudden change of temperature in the oceans. It's a very complex meteorological phenomenon which creates this kind of situation. In the case of Brazil, big floods and rains. In the case of Peru and Chile, droughts. So they should be able to put forward measures to prevent this, but because there's been a very big cuts, like 24% cut in the budget for environmental protection in Brazil, which has prevented the authorities from being able to protect these cities. At the same time, climate change has been pointed out as one of the elements which is part of the responsible for this. And now Brazil has become the fifth biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, and deforestation and the fires have increased the problem of climate change, which has created partly this situation. So these floods, these rains and these floods had a lot to do with climate change, had a lot to do with La Niña, this meteorological phenomenon which happens every year in South America. But at the same time, the cut in the budgets by the government on environmental agencies and the increase of the deforestation has created more problems, because once deforestation happens, the earth and the soil weakens, and therefore the protection that the forest gives to the environment diminishes. These are different elements which have created this situation in Brazil.
Javier, I mean, you said La Nina. I understand that, but meteorologists are saying, as you have, climate change is playing a major role here. The country's president, Jair Bolsonaro, we all know, has been a climate change denier. Do you think that these events will perhaps force him to reconsider some things, whether it's reducing the cuts made to the budgets of various organizations and ministries, and with deforestation?
Well, if there's going to be a presidential election in Brazil soon, if Mr. Bolsonaro thinks that by revitalizing the position of the environmental agencies is going to win him votes, he will do that. At the same time, there's been pressure from the US by President Biden on Bolsonaro to change his policies. At the moment, the latest budget, for example, which was presented to Congress in Brazil, cut the budget of environmental agencies by 2021 and 2022 by 27%. So there is no desire at the moment within the government of Bolsonaro to increase the budget, which is necessary to be able to fight this situation. Climate change, of course, has a lot to do with this, as you mentioned in your report, and of course I have mentioned earlier, because fires have created more emissions of carbon dioxide, and the deforestation has created more emissions of carbon dioxide, which means that climate change has increased the risks of this kind of flood. So you have La Niña, you have climate change, you have cuts in environmental budgets. All this together creates, but no pun intended, the perfect storm for this kind of phenomenon, which could be preventable. That is the problem, could be prevented, but the government doesn't seem to be able to understand the seriousness of this situation in Brazil at the moment.
Javier, pleasure having you on the channel and talking to you. Thank you very much.